Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. We hope you guys are having an awesome day.
Yes, it is a beautiful day here. Nice trees, nice sky. Not a lot of no, there's zero trails.
There is. And behind us, we could hike for probably 60, 70 miles before we even hit a road,
Hmm.
which is a nice feeling. There's a trail that goes through here. I think it's just like a national forest trail. But nobody comes back this far. We've met one Native American back here and had an interesting discussion with him about Bigfoot because he has seen the footprints. And when we were coming into this area, Cindy said she felt like a pushback in your solar plexus.
Oh, most definitely. It's like a fearful pushback, something saying we'd just rather you not be here type feeling.
So we sat here by this ravine, and I did hear stuff moving behind us. So I went up to the top of the hill, looked, didn't see anything, just evidence of deers and other, wildlife. And then we came and sat down here, and she was feeling it, and I was sensing it, and I'm so sensitive to feeling the earth from my Qigong and standing barefoot and rooting into the earth. I could feel like footsteps, and I was trying to discern, are those, you know, elk or deer or cow or what? But it felt two-legged, and Cindy was feeling the pushback strongly and starting to get nervous. And I said, let's just sit here and send out loving kindness and gratitude. And
And it was really amazing because we sat here and focused on that specific frequency, and then the pushback in the solar plexus slowly diminished. That was kind of a fun experiment. It worked.
yeah, and we have found, bare humanoid footprints in the middle of the desert over by Death Valley in Pahrump area and around that whole area there. And of course, we've talked about the Lovelock Giants, which was a taboo subject because they just kind of nixed that video as far as monetizing. And there's legends of giants and legends of Bigfoot everywhere. And I think there are more than one type of thing going on there. I think there is perhaps some that are completely physical, and I think there are many that are able to shift between ours here in the 3D, or perhaps we're actually already in a 4D when you get down to it, and the higher dimensions. So they have the ability to cloak or shift their vibrational frequency.
Which is really, really cool. I mean, things that we can't really fathom because we've never been spoken to about it, we've never been taught about it. All we have to go by is what information comes to us. And I do think in our lifetime we're going to be surprised at all the different types of beings that can be in third density, fourth density, and how close they can really be to us.
Right around us. And I do think in the ancient times, people were way more in tune with the earth, with the land, with things that were not completely physical. And so we have all the legends of elves and goblins and fairies and sprites and nymphs and all these things. And, I do think they all exist. In reality, it's just a shift of perspective and perception. And now more and more of us are seeing things all the time, as we've been talking about. There is physical evidence for something that is exactly what most people have described as Bigfoot from the Pacific Northwest, because they are different in different areas of the world. And, this gigantic, maybe anywhere from 7 to 12 foot tall humanoid, usually with reddish brown hair, sometimes darker than that, very, very much completely upright. And there's been so many sightings of it all across the country. You'd be surprised to see how many sightings of it there are, say, in Ohio or Pennsylvania. Florida, I think, is the third or fourth highest incidence. And it's the swamp ape down there and swamp ape over in Louisiana. And in those bayou areas, Texas has a ton of sightings. There's something called Gigantopithecus, black eye, which is exactly what was described. And we even have teeth from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yet science will say, oh, it died out, 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. You got teeth of it. I think there may even be like one lower mandible. Something bearing the exact resemblance to that mythical, quote unquote, creature definitely existed when we have physical evidence of it. And as we know, they tell us these cataclysms are so far apart, and we might actually have mud floods every 300 to 400 years. So who's to say, Bigfoot wasn't around a little while ago and maybe still is around? I personally have no doubts. As in North Carolina, something whacked the cabin I was in on 3 separate occasions in the middle of the night, left the branch leaning against the house, the cabin, and left a very deep imprint. That was a night where it was about 20 degrees out, and at that time I probably weighed 180 pounds or so, and I didn't leave even the slightest indent, and this was a deep imprint.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I do watch the shows where they're like hunting Bigfoot and stuff, and I just kind of giggle to myself a little bit because these beings are highly intelligent. They're multidimensional, highly intelligent, and they're not going to be just, nonchalantly stepping in front of a deer camera. They're not going to be leaving their deceased, where anyone can find them. They have very very real ways of doing things, like, burying their dead, honoring their dead, and knowing and understanding the multidimensionality of Earth. So, and I believe they definitely know better than to make contact with us like that.
They do, but I think they could sense different people's vibrations. They're very, very intuitive and psychic. I met a young gentleman, that had hiked the entire Blue Trail, all the way from Maine down to Florida. And in North Carolina, he encountered a Bigfoot on the rise on a hill just across from him. Very much like this. Very much like this. And, maybe about 200 yards away on the opposite hill, it was just sitting there and watching him. And he just sat down and watched it. And then he said, "You're not going to believe me, but I actually had a telepathic communication with him. We were actually conversing." And I said, well, what do you say? At first, the Bigfoot said, "Why are you here? What are you doing here?" And then he expressed that he was just hiking and he meant no harm. And he respected the Bigfoot and he respected Mother Nature and everything. And then they just were in kind of a symbiotic relationship that reminded me of very much the movie The Celestine Prophecy. If you haven't seen it before, there, of course, many people have read the book, millions have. But in the movie, there's a scene where you see this one character sending energy to this other character in a loving manner across a campfire. And every time the energy would go over, it would get amplified and sent back, amplified and sent back. And it was actually turning into a healing energy, a positive, benevolent energy. And we could be in that type of relationship with nature and everything in nature if we chose to.
Most definitely. And it is about, to me, it's about healing yourself, healing your own wounds so you can be more available for other people. And that's, once you are able to be available for other people, you're also available to help heal the earth through channeling your energy, because we're so much a part of her. We can channel healing energy through ourselves to her when it comes to healing yourself and healing those open wounds, and then letting those wounds take their time to, do what they need to do. We have such opportunity for growth, to grow and to learn and to understand each other and to respect each other's wishes while we're here.
Most definitely. And just as we have talked about, we're not alone in the sense that there are extraterrestrials here with us. There are spiritual beings on so many different dimensions and densities all around us. They're always walking even through us. Interesting. Heard strange sound off in the background, but Sassy seemed to notice it. Life is abundant. Life is abundant. Last night I woke up after doing mantras at 3 a.m. And I could see all sorts of beings all around me. They're just, swirling around. They're always there. But especially if we send off a positive, loving energy, There are so many benevolent beings out there waiting to help us and to guide us.
Yeah, really important to note the positive and loving energy as long as that's what we're sending out. And sometimes we might have to stop and sit and think about, hey, what frequency am I putting off? What energy am I sending out? Who am I sending it out to? And then make more of a deliberate effort to correct that if it needs corrected.
Most definitely. We could take control of this in our reality and our situation. And when you're in nature like this, it's just blissful to connect to the earth and everything around the earth, all the different beings, on more than just this, 3D reality that we could see with our two eyes. And if we open up our pineal gland, then we can see even more than that. Like last night when I was seeing them with eyes open and closed. That was pretty wild.
Yeah, that's usually how it works.
It made no difference, and that's when, so the pineal gland at a point will kind of align with the physical eyes. I can't speak for everybody, but that has been what I have noticed. So it's almost kind of like you're always seeing into two worlds at one time.
It is really curious because on the walk up here, I saw a rodent. It was a rodent in the ether, an etheric rodent. And Mike is like, well, do they get stuck in the in between too? And I started thinking, well, gosh, I'm not sure, but I sure saw it.
Right? Yeah, it's not just humans, perhaps, that get stuck in the in between if they have been through something traumatic. And that's why it's so imperative we stop all the BS with the nonstop wars, because that's not literally trapping souls in between dimensions, and it's making their soul growth just stop. And that's very sad. But
Seth.
we do know that those powers that be understand that perfectly, and that's part of why we always have the nonstop wars.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. So we need to send out that vibration for those wars to definitely stop and for this to be the peaceful, loving, learning earth that it was intended to be.
So we want to thank you for being part of the family. Make sure you are subscribed. Thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. And as we go, we want to send your way blessings of abundant health, wellness, happiness, and protection for you and your family. May you guys all live up to the highest possibility in this life.
God bless and namaste.
Namaste.